I am thinking that we're live, and it looks like we've got a countdown for the actual live. So we're almost live. If we are live, hello,
Pre-launch.
we're seeing a countdown. All right. This is kind of my New Year's surrogate because I missed the countdown this year. Hey, everyone. Oh, we're going live again. Hello, hello. Welcome to 2024, and thanks for making time over your lunch or breakfast to join us for Connect the Dots. This is episode 4 of our web tech talk show. Um, Janice Lee is filling in for my esteemed co-host Arjuna, who is off saving the planet and writing some beautiful code. So this is, I guess, our offering to friends, family, customers, prospective clients, where we gather together for half an hour every other week, usually with a special guest from the digital industry. And ideally, we spend all of our time answering your questions about web technology. Of course, we have a particular theme for each of our shows. But we really encourage everyone to raise their hand, throw a question into a comments box somewhere, because we are really in service to our audience, and we hope to get some good questions. Maybe Janice, you want to introduce yourself? Thanks for filling in this week. Nice to
Yeah,
see you.
really. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be guest hosting, excited for our guest who I already met before. It's a wonderful, exciting time. Just a little about me. I'm a partner with Dotfusion, and I focus on the growth and client experiences and customer success. So any touch point that's related to any of our clients, from the beginning of the project through to delivery, that's kind of my involvement. And just a little bit about Dotfusion for those of you who are just jumping in, learning about us for the first time. We build enterprise level websites and mobile apps on enterprise platforms. We've been around for about 20 years now. We also have a healthy UX practice. Platforms that we build on can include Contentful, Magnolia, Agility, .cms, Salesforce, you name it. And yeah, that's just a little bit about us. But without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Chris to talk about what the docs is all about.
Awesome. Yeah. So we got the idea originally from listening to the car guys on NPR, and we just thought it was such a great idea to do our best to answer questions. Hit us with your best shot there. We'd love to figure out how to help you out. If we can't answer the questions, we're going to come back over the weekend and post them in our channel. So kind of last call for questions. I just want to point out we have a wonderful production team led by Natalie in the background there, who's going to be watching the channels as well.
Awesome. So before we get into our esteemed guest, just a little bit of a lead in, if you're considering a headless modernization or migration, you might have multiple APIs or channels to consider, omni-channel. Your content is showing up in many different places. It's not just your website. You could have an app, you have display boards, kiosk, what have you. Today, we're getting into a deep dive about orchestration or digital orchestration or journey. We'll talk a little bit about, what all this language means. Are they interchangeable? Are they the same? But before we get into that, we brought in our expert to talk to us about this. I'm really excited to introduce Sara Remekie. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong, Sara, CEO of Conscia.ai. Lots of expertise in the tech field, and I'm just going to read a few of her accolades and highlights. Not really to embarrass her, but just to showcase how
to embarrass me.
Yes, to embarrass you. She's one of top 10 influential women in tech. She's a recognized public speaker. She's the CEO of Conscia, pioneer of digital orchestration, an entrepreneur, expert in information technology, discovery and personalization, really passionate about democratizing AI to non-technical users, which I know for some of us in the audience, you think you're not super tech, but we're going to break it all down for you, and Sana's going to be helping us do that. So welcome, Sana.
Thank you. Thank you. So you've pretty much said everything that I was going to say, plus a whole lot more that I wasn't going to say. But thanks for having me here. I'm really, really excited to talk about what I'm really passionate about, which is digital experience orchestration. And so thanks for giving me the chance to join you.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
So
So
I'm just jumping in because over the past year, we also happen to share membership in some professional groups and things like that, and we've been discussing orchestration. So I've been discussing it with our customers and potential customers, and I've been kind of threading into the conversation. So you're looking at digital experience and a bit of a modernization, and you've got data all over the place. How do you feel about kind of introducing an orchestration layer? And our customers are like, what is that? Like, so we kind of try to paint a picture, but maybe Sana, you could give me the words that I could use from now on to properly kind of introduce the idea.
Yeah, definitely. So orchestration is one of those words that can be quite confusing and quite versatile at the same time. And
Mm,
because of the versatility, the confusion is, it gets even bigger. So
mhm,
orchestration in the context of what we're speaking about here is for digital experience. We're orchestrating digital experiences. And when you think about orchestration, in a headless world.
Also
So
a concept that is a bit tricky for
another
some
concept,
to grasp as
exactly.
well. Yeah,
Exactly. And maybe we'll start with a little bit of definitions there as well.
awesome.
So, in the past, when you wanted to build an experience, you would use something like a web CMS, which essentially allows you to manage the content, but also manage the presentation layer as well. Then
Kind
the
of
world.
separating those in a way.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, in a traditional web CMS, those were actually intertwined quite a bit, right? So the HTML, the CSS, and the structured content all sort of intersected together in one platform to build an experience. And the business user would go into that one platform and they would, orchestrate that
Right.
experience in this one system, this one unified interface. And
Hmm.
the reason that was pretty simple was because in the past you didn't have a lot of different channels. You didn't have mobile, you didn't have kiosk channels to worry about, you didn't have voice or AR and VR. You were primarily focused on the web. So the content and the presentation could actually come together in one system since you're only worried about presenting that content on just one channel.
Right.
Now, with time, we introduced more and more different types of channels. And also, when you start thinking about commerce, you have a product catalog that doesn't necessarily sit in the CMS. You have content that sits outside of the CMS. You have, things like a digital asset management system, which is also an external system to
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
CMS. So all of a sudden you have multiple data sources, multiple content sources, but also multiple channels. So orchestration sits at the intersection of multiple backends and multiple front ends, because no longer can you just see one single source of truth like a CMS to be the one in charge for building experiences across all data sets and all touch points. So that's the idea behind orchestration is when you have multiple backend systems and multiple front ends, that you need something in the middle to allow the
Hmm.
business users to orchestrate that content and that data from those different backends to create a unified experience across all of the touch points in the customer's journey. So
Hmm.
that's why we founded Conscia. We call it digital experience orchestration to essentially qualify the term orchestration. We don't want to just call it orchestration. We want to call it digital experience orchestration, because that's exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah. Super cool. We have some actual kind of case studies where this whole concept was really important, but we didn't, I guess the industry hadn't defined the terminology for this yet.
Yeah,
But one of our projects is for a large mixed use shopping center mega building. And for this project, we happen to be using Agility CMS. and it's kind of the content hub, but we're pulling in
Mm-hmm.
data from mapping sources. We're connected to kind of food ordering apps, and we've got to put some other data from other places into a manageable experience for the end customer, who's usually kind of got important marketing things to be thinking about, while they're kind of also responsible for kind of pulling all the levers and dials on the administrative part of the website.
Mhm.
What's new, or what have you kind of got on your roadmap for cool new orchestration deluxe?
So the way we think about it is that the CMS is the place where you hold on to structured content that can be, or a headless CMS is that place. I should qualify that as well, where you hold on to that structured content that can be created once and reused across all the
Yeah.
various channels. There is, of course, data that sits outside of the CMS as well, right? There is, as I said, the product catalog information, or other maybe knowledge articles, or other systems that also have some information that needs to be used within a digital experience. So in the past, without an orchestration layer, what would typically happen is that you would integrate those data sources right into the CMS. So you would create some sort of a batch export, or even sometime a real-time sort of a sync with the CMS to first pull the data into the CMS and then feed the website or whatever channel directly from the CMS. So the website doesn't have to worry about connecting to all the different backend systems. CMS becomes essentially that integration hub, as well as the place where you are orchestrating the experience. Now, with headless technologies, becoming more and more popular, and a lot of these systems that are rising that now have APIs that are built on top of them, you no longer need to funnel the data into another data source before you consume it into the front end. Now there is the ability for each of those backend systems to be able to provide that data to whatever that client may be in real time through those APIs. So that architecture of using the CMS as the integration hub is now starting. Like, people are starting to move away from it because it creates a lot of complexity as well. Right now, you have to sync that data between backend systems and the CMS. You shouldn't need to do that if all of those backend systems have APIs available to them, right? So, sorry, go ahead, Janice. I think you have a question.
No, I wanted to let you finish, but you go ahead first. But like, I wanted to say that I like how you are able to break down, which is probably like some complex technology. I'm sure there's a lot of steps and a lot of information that goes into it, into such an easy way for people to understand. I remember we met months ago, and you had to walk me through. I'm like, you're a great like storyteller,
Thank you.
visualizer. And so I was wondering if and Chris spoke to a use case that we had, that what are some of the business challenges that companies are coming to you with, and like, how do you solve for them? Like, more from like a marketer's point of view, or for
Yeah.
say a salesperson who knows that we have a challenge here and I'm not necessarily technically inclined, but help me understand how, an orchestration
Yeah.
layer could help me.
Definitely. So there's definitely two types of challenges when you're trying to build a composable platform. And what I mean by composable is that your content and data is now in a whole bunch of different systems. Your business logic is in a whole bunch of different systems. Basically, everything is distributed. So now there's no central control over the experience anymore. The CMS is no longer the place which can control the experience of all of the different data sources, because it now only manages the structured data that it has, right? So the challenge that marketers are now facing is, I want to build a website, for instance. My data is coming from these 5 different systems. Where do I go to see what my experience is going to look like on the web channel? How do I know? How do I orchestrate that experience across all of these different backend systems? How do I determine, or decide who is going to see what on what page and what micro experience that I build across all of these channels, right? So again, in the past with the web CMS, everything was done in that one system. When headless CMSs came into play, a lot of the times the implementations were done in such a way that even though we're working with a headless CMS, we put all of that presentation logic and even the preview capabilities right in the CMS itself, because to make up for the fact that we no longer had that centralized interface, right? So still to this day, there's a lot of hybrid CMSs that have that presentation control, that preview, etc. And it works in some cases, but in many use cases, it doesn't. And where it doesn't is when you are going beyond the web, for instance, or you're going beyond just one or two different content sources. So the way digital experience orchestration solves that problem is that it provides marketing teams a single interface to essentially manage that logic, that experience logic, but it has the ability to have a view into all of those backend systems by creating direct connections with all of those backend systems without moving data, without syncing anything. We're able to allow the marketer to go, okay, so for my hero banner, I want to pull an image from Cloudinary, for instance, or I want to have a featured video from Cloudinary, but hey, I also want to transform that image or that video depending on who is looking at it. So in some cases, I may want a certain artistic style, like an overlay on top of that video. So how do you manage that? Do you now go into Cloudinary and go set all of those different rules up for what the video is going to look like for all of these different types of people? Or, do we need a central place to do that? Right. So
definitely think that helps, not just solves like a technology problem, but from what clients I hear, and even within our own teams, like there's a lot of change management. People, like, new software is coming on, new technologies. Do they have to learn a new dashboard, a new something, a new interface every single time? And it sounds like orchestration will give the opportunity for people to like manage or control all those elements in one place versus learning 5 different dashboard systems, for example.
Exactly. So the swivel chair effect sort of goes away, right? Where you're going from one system to another to write tags on certain images and content and write metadata on certain, like on within the CMS and in a content model to essentially determine where that content gets shown, right? So content is is now fully separated from presentation, right? Content is just purely structured, and what you're doing is using the orchestration layer to write the rules for the experience, and that experience can be projected, in various different directions as well.
Hey, Sana, oh, sorry, Jay.
Sorry, Chris. I was just going to address, I know that we've got some questions coming in, and some just wanted to wish Happy New Year to Leah and Shiva. Nice to see you here. And also we had a question from M Wish wanting to know, what are the UX trends that apply to orchestration? Or I think that's it. He just said, what are the UX trends? So I don't know if you have enough information to comment on that.
Yeah, I think I would probably need a little bit more information. But if we're talking about front-end technology specifically, like frameworks that are, that are seen more commonly, you would see on a website, for instance, it's mostly JavaScript frameworks that are being used in a headless capacity. Whereas a lot of times, in the DXP world and in the web CMS world, there were proprietary presentation frameworks that were being used by these technologies that essentially, couple a lot of that the content and the front end layer as well. So I'm not sure if I'm answering that question right, because I didn't have enough.
Maybe we'll ask to expand if he wants to, if that was enough of an explanation for him, or if he or she wanted a little more detail, we can circle back. Chris, I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier. You had a question or you had a comment?
No, I was just kind of thinking out loud. I was recently chatting with one of our clients, and we've built their digital experience on top of Contentful. And
Mhm.
they're looking to expand and kind of extend the reach of some of that content through really interesting viewports. One of them is the panel that greets you when you walk into a
Right,
multifamily home, condo, or apartment building. So
right.
that's a display. It
Yeah,
has
yeah.
facial recognition. It has data about the tenant. It has
Hmm.
certain rules and regulations about what can happen next. It needs to connect with their phone number.
Yeah.
So we're exploring, okay, how are we actually going to do that? We have data coming from Salesforce. We've got kind
Yes.
of, all the webby kind of promotionally marketing stuff coming out of Contentful. So this may be an opportunity where we kind of recommend an orchestration layer, and also harmonizes the, I guess, the interface or cockpit for their kind of more marketing focused
Right,
team.
right. And no, that's actually a perfect use case for something like that. So, orchestration comes into play in a lot more complex use cases where there is, in order to display the experience to the customer, you have to first, process some information, for instance, about the
Mhm.
customer by fetching that information maybe from a CRM or a CDP. So all of this is happening within the orchestration layer in real time, and the layer is making calls to the CRM. It's fetching data from say Contentful or another CMS, and then
Mhm.
essentially creating a payload for the front end that it can just consume rather than front end doing the orchestration, front end
Right.
actually doing all the coding, right? So all that glue code that you typically end up writing in your front end, you no longer have to do that. So the front end essentially makes one call. We call it the experience API call. It asks the digital experience orchestration layer, give me the experience for this person. So this is my context. This is the customer ID, and I want to display the main screen on this kiosk, right? So that's a context that it provides to the DXO. Now DXO goes and does all the work behind the scenes to see, based on the rules that were set by the marketing team right in the DXO interface itself, that if the customer segment is millennial, show them this. If the customer segment is senior, show them something else. So first it goes and figures out who the person is, what their characteristics are, then goes and fetches the right content based on all the business rules that were set within the DXO itself. And the nice thing is that it's, as you said, we're dealing with more than just website. We're talking about a kiosk. So the DXO has to be able to respond to a request from any channel, and it just
Mhm.
knows the context of that channel, and the rules are written for each of those channels and for all the different contexts. So all that information is there in the DXO, and it's able to go and fetch all the right information from all the different backend systems to generate a response that is meaningful for that particular front end experience.
Awesome. Unfortunately, I see a clock in the upper left corner and the time is running out. I didn't want to miss the
Wow.
opportunity to kind of ask on behalf of folks that are listening that may be more curious about, like, what do I do to explore kind of orchestration further? You're probably Googling some stuff right now, but in kind of layman's terms, can you maybe introduce, what are the steps towards getting a bit more familiar or knowing when the time is right, for example, for, an organization to adopt some orchestration?
So I think in terms of the timing, it's really when you are building a headless architecture, a composable architecture, when you have multiple backend systems, when you don't have a single place where business users and marketers can go to manage the experience on the different touch points that you want to roll out for your customers. That's where orchestration plays a massive role. In the absence of orchestration, what you essentially end up doing is, if you are building a headless platform, is that either you end up putting all of that business logic or experience logic in one of your content sources, or
Mhm.
you end up hard coding that business logic um, in the front end.
Mhm.
Right. So you don't want to do any of those things because you don't want to tie yourself to any one backend, and you don't want to tie yourself to any one front end either. You need that
Mm-hmm.
layer in the middle to be agnostic of the back end and agnostic of the front end, so that you can continue to grow as a business, and make modifications and evolve your experience with the needs um, of your customer
I
as
like
well.
I like playing with analogies, or is it an analogy or a metaphor? Oh, I'll have to look into this.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of orchestration is like you have this universal remote that controls everything in your house.
Yes, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
analogy. Yes,
Phone, your I don't know, your alarm system, your speakers. You like it's basically one thing, and that way, if one thing you decide one day I'm not using anymore, you disconnect it, but you still have the remote that controls everything else.
exactly. That's a really good. That's a really really good analogy. Like you just came up with that, just like real time.
And you're like,
You're just
Yeah,
thinking,
I'm just like,
go
that's
go to web, go to watch,
yeah,
That's so
go
cool.
to kiosk.
Well, I was actually just thinking the other day, I was getting very frustrated with the number of incoming notifications that I have. Like, I have my, the Apple Messenger, then I have my WhatsApp, then I have Slack, then I have LinkedIn, then I have email. And I'm thinking, is there a way that I can just bring it all together? Maybe in Slack. I like Slack. So maybe
maybe
I need to like bring
product
in all
request,
of,
get on the roadmap.
yeah, exactly. Or is there an
Slackistration.
orchestration
We're all tired.
platform for messages?
We're all tired of having 10 billion apps on our phones and
Yeah, because it's very distracting. It's just a lot of, a lot of distraction, and it's just tough to keep up with everything that is going on. So yes, very similar to the idea of a universal remote, like that works with your Apple TV and your Chromecast and Google TV and Amazon, like Alexa, and all
all
of that stuff.
the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Some
You
questions.
gave me an idea. Oh, sorry, Dave. When
No,
you were
I know.
talking,
Yeah.
it's almost like we need a community run place that would be like the DX university, where it's inevitable that folks who have a lot more on their minds than simply having to deal with technology have to go through a bit of a learning curve for all this terminology. And it'd be lovely to have a place where it's like kind of there's a simple onboarding to get up to what the industry is kind of using as jargon.
Definitely.
And it's just a challenge that I found, explaining things. So today has been super cool, Senna, in that you just have an elegant way of being able to parse,
Yeah.
a kind of fairly complex stuff into like a nice, meaningful, understandable way. So
Yes.
super
Thank
cool.
you.
We are coming down to the last little bit, but there's some great questions that are coming through. One came through from Natalie saying she loves the brand name. What is Conscia doing with AI, and what is its role in orchestration?
Yeah, sure. So Conscia.ai, that's why you're asking that question. So there are two parts to the name, Conscia and AI. The word Conscia actually comes, it's a root word for consciousness. And consciousness comes from understanding, from knowledge, etc. So when we talk about orchestration, we're sitting in the middle of, we're that kind of the conscious platform, right? So it knows of everything that is happening in all different directions, all the customer touch points, all the different data sources. So we're sitting right in the middle of that and making sense of that. And that's why, the word Conscia. AI is being used within our platform in a whole bunch of different capacities. One of them is, one of our product modules is called the DX Graph. So we are pulling data from various systems, enriching that data, cleansing that data, and making it ready, especially when it's coming from legacy systems, making it ready for consumption on the front end. And we have a lot of AI powered tooling to do that data enrichment, cleansing, classification, etc. We're also starting to use AI now in actually building very quickly those connections to those various backend systems. So there's a pattern to which we see the way data is exposed in a lot of these backend systems, and so we're using AI to learn that pattern and automatically create the configuration for the connections that we're making to these backend systems. So now there's no more manual effort involved. So that's still work in progress, and we're hoping to launch that capability in this coming year as well. So a lot of different avenues in which AI is becoming important to us.
That's very exciting. We'll look out for that.
Yeah.
Super cool.
We only have time for one more question. So what do you see, Sana, in terms of what will 2024 have in store for orchestration? What are your thoughts on trends or what's going to happen?
So I think that up to now, a lot of the headless implementations have been done with without thinking about what exactly. I'm sorry. Actually, I stopped seeing everybody for a second, so I got
Oh
scared.
yeah, no
I
worries,
should
no worries.
be
There's a
scared.
little
We're
technical
okay.
jiggle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All good, all good.
Take
I was
two.
like, am I talking to myself? Um, so yeah, so far, what we've seen is a lot of the headless implementations, were sort of misguided. They tried to follow the same patterns that were pre-headless. Trying to think of the experience in a page-centric sort of way. And in the last year, I think in the last couple of years, people have started to realize that that was done in the wrong way, and we now need to really start thinking strategically about building experiences for an omni-channel reality. We have to stop thinking about the page and start thinking about the customer experience as a journey, right? So I believe that digital experience orchestration will become front and center in achieving that in the future, and that's why we've put all of our eggs in this basket and hope to, succeed this in 2024 with that.
Awesome, super cool. Man, I really want to just throw this out to whoever is listening right now and challenge them with the best explanation of glue code. I know you mentioned that, and I do have some pals who are like, "What do you mean by that?" I love just
Right.
defining lingo. But we are at the end of today. Sana, super appreciative and honored that you're hanging out with us.
Thank you so much for
Really
having me.
appreciate it. Super cool. Janice, thanks for jumping in here. We'll have to have you back co-hosting more often. We are moving to a bi-weekly schedule of this web tech talk show, and coming up on January 24th is our friend and also amazing headless guru when it comes to SEO for headless, personalization, and A/B testing. But we, and his name is Justin Cook from Ninth Co. We ran into each other when I was really trying to figure out who were the boss people out there that really understood SEO for headless, and just a great chap. So looking forward to hosting Justin on the 24th at noon. If there are any questions that linger around after we turn off here, we'll be sure to follow up as best we can. Really appreciate everyone taking some time out of their day to listen in. And again, thanks, Sana. Thanks, Janice. Natalie in the background, thank you very much. You're awesome. And have a wonderful day.
Thanks for watching,
Thank you
everyone.
so
Thanks,
much.
Sana. Bye, Chris.